Well, hey there guys, Conceptual Concepts 6.9 here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest, and today I'm doing a final review on the Sureshot Armament Group Mark III chassis system. I've been running this guy for about 4 to 5 months, haven't been shooting it crazy amounts, but I just reached the 1500 round mark and wanted to do a final review of it. Now, everything was running really well. Once I passed 1,000 rounds, I'm like, okay, this thing is going to stay. This is going to hold zero very well, and I was really impressed with it. But tragedy struck, unfortunately.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
I was at 1,200 rounds the other day, shot another 10 mags through it, got home, and I noticed something had shifted, which was the front handguard. I don't know if you can see this. I'll insert a photo, but it has shifted ever so slightly to the right. Now, the question is, has the entire chassis system shifted to the right, or is it just the lower handguard? Because it is its own separate piece. I'm kind of curious about that, but we're going to go ahead and group it. Now, this gun was originally zeroed with tele ammo at 50 yards, and it was zeroed to hit center. So we're going to go ahead, shoot the 5-round group, see if it's shifted. Now, I do want to note that the sun is directly behind where I'm needing to aim, so if the group size is a little big, bear with it, but hopefully we'll get a good group to see if it's shifted at all. Alright guys, forgive the fire in the background. I am at a public range. People are shooting as to be expected. But let's see how this thing does. God, I hate red dot magnifiers. Right, let's go check. Alright, so this is actually really awful. So this was zeroed at 50 yards with the same ammo I just shot. Now don't pay attention to this group, how big it is. I was shooting into the sun, so not doing great there in terms of my overall accuracy. However, it is a group. And you'll see we shifted from center impact at 50 yards. This is where it was zeroed with that ammo, to, what's that, 4 inches low and what, 3.5 inches to the left. So we have a major shift in impact. So that's 8 MOA shift down and a 7 MOA shift to the left. That is awful. So it was shooting pretty damn straight up until my last range trip, which I don't always shoot with a camera, but I was at 1,200 rounds when I started the range trip. I went through 300 rounds of ammo. I was shooting pretty close. I thought maybe I was just shooting low left. You know, sometimes you have those off days, but clearly this is not good. So somewhere in the space of 1,200 to 1,500 rounds through this chassis system, I have a major shift in impact. Something must have broken loose on the chassis system and shifted. And what alerted me to that, I was doing closer range stuff, got home, I looked it over, and the handguard had shifted to the right. So that would make the impacts go left. Makes sense, right? So looks like the entire chassis system has shifted to the right, making my impacts go to the left, and it must have shifted up as well, making my impacts go low. So not great. This is pretty dang terrible. All right, so we shot that 5-shot group. Again, sun was in my eyes. I'm pretty sure you could see that in the shooting footage, but we have shifted significantly. This was my point of aim right here. So dead center. If it was grouping the same as it was at 1,000 rounds, it would be here. Unfortunately, it has shifted the group size about 4.5 inches, 4 to 4.5 inches low, and 3.5 inches to the left. So that makes it a 8 to 9 MOA shift down, and a 7 MOA shift to the left, which is terrible. This is really, really bad, guys. So we're going to go over kind of what I think happened, and then we're going to just give this a hard don't recommend. If you want to save time, that's it. Don't recommend. But let's go over the features of this chassis system and where I think it went wrong. The big thing is, the only thing setting and centering this chassis system over your rifle is 4 or 5, I think it's 5 screws internally here. And we'll get some B-roll or some photos to show. But you've got 4 or 5 screws going through here. And that screw tension is what is centering it to your gun. So unfortunately, what that means is if any screws come loose, your chassis system can shift to the right or left. And let's be honest, the gun is vibrating quite a bit. Now, I drenched these screws in Loctite, kind of dreading getting this thing off because it definitely is going to be a bear. I'm going to have to torch it quite a bit to get this thing off. I drenched it in Loctite. I torqued them down pretty hard. And again, there's no actual torque spec, so I just went with what I thought, my monkey brain thought. But obviously it has shifted, and I thought initially it was just the lower handguard, or at least I had hoped it was just the lower handguard had shifted, because it is a separate piece, and maybe just with vibration over time it shifted to the right. But unfortunately doesn't look to be accurate. It has shifted quite a bit, and we're looking at a massive deviation from the original 0, which makes this ineffective. And even if you were to re-zero, even if you were to straighten back up, how long would it take before it did this again? So I'm not going to trust this personally. Now, if you want to look at an in-depth trying to fix it, trying to make it work, look up M26 Lemon Grenade. I'll go ahead and notate a card for his video on this chassis system up here. Hopefully he still has it up. But he tried really hard to fix it. He even dimpled the rear sight block to make it where the screws had something to bite into and not shift around. It still did not work. So this is a hard pass from me. I'm sorry, this is way worse than the Texas Weapon Systems rail, which only had a 2 MOA shift and about the same number of rounds. So 2 MOA shift is a lot more acceptable than a 8 to 9 MOA shift one direction and a 7 MOA shift the other. So again, this was kind of an extensive, not even extensive, 1,500 rounds, but it held up very, very well up to the 1,200 round mark. Unfortunately, somewhere in those 300 rounds during that training day, one of the screws got knocked loose, multiple screws got knocked loose, and it shifted significantly. So I'm going to tell you, this is a hard pass for me. This is not something I'd recommend. This is a sample size of 1. However, there are multiple other people who have actually tested this as well. M26 Lemon Grenade, Kevin, you know who you are, but it failed on a couple of your AKs, if I remember right, as well. And I believe there's a comment or two of theirs failing as well. So, end of the day, I'm just going to give this a hard do not recommend. Next up for this rifle, because this didn't work, I'm working on getting a Barwaris. That's going to be my next project. Now, it is a fairly direct Zeneco clone, and Zeneco has worked incredibly well for me. My Alpha AK has stayed true, stayed zeroed for give or take 8,000 rounds. Now, I have had multiple optics on it, but the Trijicon TA50 has been on there for a very long time, and it's holding zero just fine. So hopefully Barwaris is as good, but Sureshot, definitely, they tried their best, but I just think there's something wrong with the system. I would love to get a hold of a Russian-made one to see if maybe it's a little better, but the Sureshot USA, Mark III chassis, I just can't recommend. It was holding really, really well for about 1,200 rounds, and then somewhere in the last 300 rounds, we lost zero significantly. It's not even usable at this point. I wouldn't feel safe shooting it because it's not impacting anywhere close to where I'm aiming. So hard no. Stay tuned for the barbed wires. Hopefully I'll get one in the next couple months and put it on this rifle, test it out, and hopefully it is good, because this is not. Don't do it.